Hey guys, this is Brandon McGee at the McGee Law Firm, and today I'm going to be talking to you about irrevocable trust. That's irrevocable with an I in front. And this is a topic that I think is very interesting to a lot of people, and it's a topic I think where there's not a lot of accurate knowledge out there. So I want, by the end of this conversation, I want for you guys to all have a really good understanding of what an irrevocable trust is and what the advantages and disadvantages of an irrevocable trust are. And just so you guys know a little bit about my background, I'm based out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area in the state of Texas. Everything that I'm going to be talking to you about today is going to be pursuant to the laws of the state of Texas. So if you're watching this from outside of the state of Texas, it may apply to your state as well, or it may not. So I just want to give you a warning on that. But what exactly is an irrevocable trust? And first, let's back up and say what exactly is a trust, period. A trust is a legal document, and it's a document that is the most advanced estate planning document, in my opinion, that we can have in Texas. And it's basically a document that we want to give ownership of our assets to that document. And the question is, why would we want to do that? Why would I want for a legal document to own my house, to potentially own my retirement accounts, my financial accounts, my rental properties? Why is this a good idea, Brandon? And the reason it can be a good idea is, number one, it can help us avoid probate court, okay? So any trust, period, can allow our family to avoid the probate court process once we pass away. Second, a trust can also help us avoid the federal estate tax if it has proper clauses in the trust and those are followed. It does give us some flexibility and some options in an attempt to avoid the federal estate tax. Third, and sometimes most importantly, depends on the family, is that a trust allows us to release funds out into the future. So, for example, if we go through the court system with a will or without a will, then funds are going to be released to the beneficiaries or the heirs almost immediately, right? It doesn't matter if they're living on a street corner, if they're addicted to drugs, whatever's happening in their life, they're getting their inheritance. But with a trust, we can put in a lot of clauses, a lot of language that will sort of allows us to micromanage from the grave, so to speak, and distribute money out into the future. And we can get very creative in how we do this. So there's a lot of families find a benefit to that. Now, what is an irrevocable trust? How is that different than a revocable trust? Three primary criteria. Number one is that the trust is irrevocable. As the name suggests, we can't revoke it. It's etched in stone, so to speak. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, an irrevocable trust, we want to approach it as being unamendable, meaning we can't amend it, we can't make changes to it. Now, the reality is that in the state of Texas, there are certain reasons that sometimes you can make changes, but you have to go through the court system, and you're very limited as to what the judge can approve and cannot approve. So we want to approach it to be on the safe side, as we cannot amend an irrevocable trust. That needs to be your mindset going into it. Number three, the third way that it's going to differ from a revocable trust is you can't be in charge of it. If you're a single person, you can't be in charge of it. If you're a married person, neither you nor your spouse can be in charge of it, meaning you can't be the trustee. So you basically, even while you're alive, you have to cede authority to a third party. Now, this could be a close family member, it could be a close friend, it could be a law firm, it could be a bank and trust company, but you cannot manage an irrevocable trust if you truly want it to have the benefits of being irrevocable, okay? So that's something that for a lot of people is a big turnoff, right? They feel like, while I'm alive, I want to be in charge of my assets. I don't want my friend Joe Blow or my brother over here to be in charge of my assets. I want to be in charge of my assets. So now, why would somebody, given that the irrevocable trust, we can't get rid of it, we basically can't amend it, and we can't be in charge of it, what are the benefits that are out there that would cause somebody to decide to have an irrevocable trust? Because there's a heavy upside too, potentially. Number one is that an irrevocable trust in the state of Texas can shelter our assets from lawsuits. Okay, so a legal judgment by a creditor, somebody that sued us in a business capacity or personal capacity, cannot penetrate an irrevocable trust. However, you have to keep in mind that that's only if the action that caused the lawsuit happened after the irrevocable trust was set up. So if I get in my car and I cause a major accident due to driving neglect, and then I run and I set up an irrevocable trust and put all my assets in it, that's not going to work because I set the trust up after the events that caused the lawsuit to occur. Okay, so that's one reason somebody might consider it. Number two, and in my law practice anyways, much more common, is that an irrevocable trust can help protect our assets from a nursing home stay. What that means is simply this. If I set up an irrevocable trust and I put all my assets in it, or I put, let's say, a percentage of my assets in it, 5 years after I have done that, Medicaid, which is the government authority that will help pay for nursing care if you can't do it yourself, Medicaid will have to consider those assets to not be mine because I put them in an irrevocable trust. I'm not in charge of that trust. Another person is in charge of that trust. So Medicaid has to say that this trust owns these assets. Brandon McGee does not own these assets. However, like I said earlier, there is a 5-year look back. So the assets have to be in trust for 5 years before Medicaid has to consider them to not be your assets. And the reason for this is to prevent people, again, from, somebody has a major medical episode, they see that I'm probably gonna, my spouse is probably gonna have to go into nursing care pretty soon. Let's just run and set up an irrevocable trust right now, get all the assets in there. If that were the case, many people would be doing it and Medicaid would be overwhelmed with claims, okay? So those are the two advantages, just to kind of recap here. Two advantages of an irrevocable trust. Number one, it can potentially make our assets immune from legal judgments. Number two, it can potentially cause our assets to be considered non-countable by Medicaid, meaning that we can qualify for Medicaid if we're in a nursing home situation, even if we have assets held back in that trust, okay? And let me recap the disadvantages. It's etched in stone. We can't get rid of the irrevocable trust. It is largely unamendable, right? It's a document that's very difficult to amend. And then number three, and I think for most people, this is the real problem, is you can't be in charge of it. You have to turn over control of your assets while you're alive to a third party. So that's really what an irrevocable trust is. That is a quick rundown of the advantages and the disadvantages of the irrevocable trust. So I hope that helps give you guys a lot of great information so that you can become more knowledgeable and start to consider whether or not an irrevocable trust is for you. To be honest, I think for most people it's not for them, but there's certainly other people in a situation where they can really benefit from it. But I want you guys to have a great day. Thanks for listening. And please reach out to us at McGeeLawDFW.com. You can find all of our information. If you're a Texas resident, we're more than happy to give you a consultation on estate planning. And we don't have to talk about irrevocable trust. There's a lot of other things to talk about that could pertain to your family. So please feel free to reach out to us, guys.